guys, welcome back to what's going to be the third part of Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death. And I'm just going to pick up where I left off, and that was with Sam Pivniks experiencing yet another miracle. So as Sam lay in his hospital bunk, Mengele had come in to do his weekly rounds. And Sam says he was frozen in fear, shaking with terror, because they knew, like I said, that anybody that couldn't stand beside their bed was for the gas. And that's what happened to Sam. Mengele approached him and he pointed to the left, to the gas chamber. And Sam says at this point he just broke down. He just broke down into floods of tears and he threw himself at Mengele's feet. Thinks he even kissed his boots at one point, and this was just him begging for his life. Please have mercy on me. Please, please don't send me to the gas chambers. Please. Begging for his life. And he knew that Mengele hated to be touched by Jews. And he knew that by doing what he did could have cost him a bullet straight there and then. And for some unknown reason, Mengele walks away. And later that day, Sam is actually told that he can stay. So Sam that day was not going to the gas chamber. And, you know, the relief that he must have felt at that point, it is so, so sad. How damaging is this to a young boy's mental health? I mean, obviously Mengele showed no empathy, no regard for human life, and no regard for the mental well-being of the people there. It's horrifying what happened. I mean, you know, and you've got these people out there that are Holocaust deniers. Like, are you for fucking real? So once Sam recovers in the hospital, he's recovering from typhus. He's sent straight to hard labour at a coal mine in Auschwitz 3, another subcamp of the main complex, which is about 19 miles away, by the way. So you can see how big the Auschwitz complex actually is. It's like massive. And here he manages to survive again. And he manages to survive several times because there's still selections being taken out over here. So anybody that can no longer work, the weak ones, the ones that are slacking, they all get sent to the gas chambers and they just get new prisoners to replace them because there is a never-ending supply of prisoners entering into these camps. So, yep, he's managing to save himself again from the gas chambers. So whilst Sam's working in this coal mine, the war is raging on behind the scenes, and it's evident that the Allies are now winning this, and they're advancing closer to the capital of Germany. And the Red Army are advancing quite quickly to Auschwitz. So the SS guards at this point just start shooting prisoners. They even burn some alive, and they just start burning everything, like all the barracks, all the everything, notes, everything. They're trying to get rid of any evidence of inhumane experiments, this hard labour, gas chambers, because they know that they're going to be in massive trouble if this war does not go on their side, which was evident in the Nuremberg trials. So, and with the rest of the remaining prisoners, they round them up, they line them up, and these people are about to embark on the biggest journey of their lives, this journey of survival known as the Death March. So it was in mid-January of 1945 that the Soviet troops began to approach the Auschwitz concentration camp. So this is when the SS began their evacuation process. So what they did was they forced nearly 60,000 prisoners to march west from the Auschwitz camp. But thousands had already been killed before this march. So, like I was saying, they were just shooting people, setting people on fire. And they still had these 60,000 prisoners to march. So, tens of thousands of prisoners, mostly Jews, including our Sam, were forced to march either northwest to Gleiwitz, which was 30 miles away. And that's the route that Sam was on. there was another route due west going somewhere else, but our Sam was on the Gleichfitz route. And the SS guards, they would just shoot anybody that fell behind, or the ones that just didn't want to continue, they would just get shot. So, and also the prisoners, they died from the cold weather, because bearing in mind, January, February, March, they're all really cold months, and sometimes you can get snow in these months as well. Now I live in Scotland, and I can tell you that it's freezing here, even during the summer, so can't even imagine how cold it must have been at this point. They also died from starvation, bearing in mind the conditions in the camp before this march even began were horrendous. Prisoners were already starved half to death as it was, and now they had to do this big march with absolutely no food. So they say at least 3,000 people died on this Gleichfitz march alone, and in all 15,000 prisoners died during the march as an overall, which is just horrific. And Sam survived this. His persistence, determination to live is next to none, and I'm rooting for Sam. I am so happy that Sam survived all this. It fills your heart with a little bit of joy through all this just horribleness. And Sam's journey doesn't end there, not by a long shot. He manages to survive the death march to Gleichfitz, and it's from there that they then have to take a 9-day rail journey to another concentration camp. 9 days with no extra provisions. So again, starving, dehydrated, and complete unsanitary conditions for 9 days, only to go to another concentration camp. So, after this horrific 9-day rail journey, they finally arrive on the 28th of January 1945 to the Dora Mittelbau concentration camp. Now, this was originally a sub-camp to the Buchenwald concentration camp, but in 1944 it gained independence. And it ends up having 30 sub-camps of its own. So they arrive here, and immediately Sam is put to work. Hard labour, slave labour, 14-hour shifts with barely any food or water. Back to work, and he's back at it for 3 months. And it's after those 3 long, grueling months of slave labour in construction that Sam and approximately 200 other former Fürstengruber prisoners are evacuated by barge along the River Elbe to Holstein in northern Germany. And this was another incredibly long journey. This was 219 miles away down a river. And what I found fascinating is actually the river is 724 miles long. And in comparison to it being from John O'Groats in Scotland to Land's End in England being 874 miles, that river is nearly the length of Great Britain as a whole. So I just found that quite strange. Sorry, off topic. But anyway, once they arrive there, they're all assigned to farm labour. And Sam is actually assigned to one of the SS guards' parents' homes to work there on the farm. And then they were on the march again. So in early May 1945, Sam and the other former Fürstengruber prisoners were marched to the port of Neustadt, and it was there that they were loaded on the 3rd of May 1945 aboard the former German cruise ship Cap Arcona, which was now being used as a prison ship for concentration camp inmates, along with 3 other ships as well, the Theilbeck, the Athen, and the Deutschland. So he was now being shipped, God only knows where. However, only hours after Sam boarded the Cap Arcona, fighter bombers of the Royal Air Force attacked the fleet of ships. And I just don't believe this, but Both Sam's ship, the Cap Arcona, and the other one called the Thielbeck were both set on fire and sunk. When is Sam going to actually get a break from all of this? Like, when? But luck and strength were on the side of Sam that day. Because he was one of the last to board the Cap Arcona, he was situated on one of the upper decks, and he actually managed to jump from the ship. He jumped from the ship into the water and managed to swim ashore. And out of the 7,000 passengers that were on board those two ships, no more than 500 survived. So, I mean, what an amazing man. What a walking miracle this man is. I mean, I just cannot imagine the strength that you would need to be able to overcome everything that he did. And then in later life, the mental strength to carry on. And he did it. Sam did it. Finally, on the 4th of May 1945, Sam Pivniks was liberated by the British Army in Neustadt. And Sam went on to live in London after that. And then he wrote a book called Survivor, Auschwitz, The Death March, and My Fight for Freedom. And what a fight that was. That book was published on the 30th of August in 2012. And sadly, exactly 5 years later, on the 30th of August 2017, Sam died just 2 days before his 91st birthday. What a legend this man is. I would definitely go read his book. What a legend. I know I went slightly off topic there talking about Sam and his survival story, but I do think it's important that we do talk about the survivors and their stories and what they went through and just how amazing they are that they managed to get through it all and survived. And Sam living up to 90 years old after everything he went through is just amazing and well deserved. Well deserved. And yeah, so that was his interactions anyway with Josef Mengele. So now I'm going to go on and tell you a little bit more about the other experiments and things that were conducted by him. This lady here, named Eva Mozes Kor, she was another survivor of the Holocaust and another of Josef Mengele's guinea pigs. So she was born on the 31st of January 1934, and she was born to parents Alexander and Eva Mozes. She also had two older sisters, Edith and Elise. And not only that, but Eva was a twin. She had a twin sister named Miriam. So that's why she ended up being one of Mengele's experiments. So unfortunately, 1944 comes around, and in May of that year, they were transported to Auschwitz. And they were transported via these cattle cars. And she does recall being shoved into this tightly packed cart intended for cattle, which is effectively is exactly what is going on here. People are being rounded up, put onto these carts, and effectively being sent to their slaughter, to their deaths. This is exactly what is going on here. These are not seen as human beings. They are just seen as cattle. You know, the way that us humans view these animals. I can't say personally I agree with that, because I don't agree. I don't like to hear of animals being slaughtered for their meat or put to work. The ones that are being put to work, like cows, are put to work to produce milk all day. This is exactly what is going on here. And, you know, well, this lady's a survivor and she's got a story to tell. So I'm going to tell that story so that her fight for justice was not in vain. And after 4 grueling days on the carts, Eva, Miriam, Edith, Elise, Jaffa and Alexander arrive at Auschwitz concentration camp. And it was when they stepped off the cattle cars that an SS guard came running up to Eva's mother, demanding to know whether Eva and Miriam were twins. And her mum will said yes, they're twins. And immediately she was just taken away. She was just dragged away from her two 10-year-old children just like that. And Eva and Miriam were just stood there, now alone, no family. And they didn't really understand what in the hell was going on. Eva does say the last time she remembers seeing her mum was her mum with her arms outstretched, reaching towards her two children, just being dragged away. Nothing she could do about it. Just being ripped away from them. And Eva does say that she never got to say goodbye to her mother, because at that point she didn't fully understand what was going on. She didn't realise that was going to be the last time she ever saw her mum. And, you know, now we know that they were probably more than likely gassed in the chambers. And it is so hard. These stories, you get so emotionally invested, and it's really, really hard not to have this overwhelming feeling of sadness. And unbeknownst to Eva and Miriam, they would spend the next 9 months in the Auschwitz concentration camp. This is where I'm going to leave part 3. God, I know how many parts, but there was so much that this man has done and so many lives ruined. It's just really, really hard to keep it just at, a 20-minute video. It's worth so much more than that. These people's stories need to be heard, and they need people to keep telling them so that we don't ever forget what happened during World War II, during the Holocaust. It just can't be forgotten. It wouldn't be fair to those that died for us just to sweep it all under the rug and forget and act like nothing ever happened, because, that's just, well, it's not me. And I want to keep singing from the rooftops about these people, these amazing people, ones that died and ones that survived. Amazing people, the strength that they had, even in these camps, the ones that even died, the strength that they had is next to none. And these bastards, these cowards, killing innocent women, innocent children just for being a fucking Jew. Please,